Hey, gun people. This is this is an old video, but it's kind of got some good legal precedence for people who um, want to stick around. I'll show the video and then I'll go into the legal where they sued the officer and the outcome and why the outcome was what it was and how Florida law has been changed now. But in my opinion, this officer is dead wrong. He's a punk. He overreacted. He's out here pulling over a guy in a van, and because he sees a gun, he panics and starts screaming and prones the guy out, even though the guy says I have a permit. And this is the typical traffic cops that I'm always talking about. Why I hate traffic cops. I mean, this guy who stopped him would never really stop a real criminal who's wanted for murder, bank robbery, slicing, or gang activity. He wouldn't stop them because he'd be scared. But he's going to stop some old guy and prone him out on the concrete and draw a gun on him because he's a lawful concealed carry owner, man. This cop is a punk in my book. I think his name's Andy Cox. Let's look at this video.
Got driver's license on your day? The reason I stopped your tag expired.
Ooh, his tag's expired. Ooh, that's felony. Ooh, I got me a big ticket. Wow, I'm a big tough cop. I stopped a van with an old guy and his tag's expired. Ooh, I'm going to be the hit of the police department. I'll probably get free donuts in the morning. Punk.
Showing the expired decal. You got the registration proof insurance? It happens. It happens. What are you carrying a gun for? Put your hands on. Put your hands right there. Put your hands right there. I'll shoot you in the fucking back. 543, code 2, single 54. Don't fucking move. You understand what I'm telling you? Get down on the fucking ground now.
Guys, cooperative. Said I got a permit. Isn't resisting. And this cop has totally lost it. I bet you this is the first time this cop pulled his gun all year. He's all excited and worked up. Man, I'll tell you, man, this cop just drives me nuts. Absolutely should have substantiated a complaint on him.
Get out on the ground!
He's going to be at the Walgreens.
Put your hands on your back.
On 19 and 98.
Don't you move. You understand me?
That's 10-4.
He's shaking when he's putting on the cuffs. What a punk.
I have a permit for it. Don't move. Stay right there. Stay on the ground.
So this guy's so scared of him, and he's so worried about him, he hasn't secured the gun, and he's stepping over him with his back to him. Wow, he's really scared.
I don't care if he has a permit or not. Step out of the vehicle.
I don't care if he has a permit or not. Wow.
Walk around the front. 543 citizen.
543.
White male detained. Do you have anything on you?
That's 10-4.
No weapons?
No, I don't have weapons. He has it to show weapons from it.
All right, we can back down.
He always carries a gun.
546, can you back down?
That's the 4 white male detained.
Step right over here behind me. Step away from him. Step away from him. Right over there. Step right over there.
That's 10-4, please, today.
No, it's not. You never told me you had a permit. You come stepping out of the van with me, you reach around behind your back, swing your wallet.
Man, you hear how this guy's going to write this report? I can tell you right now, he's going to say the guy jumped out of the car and swung around with his wallet. This guy had absolutely no fear. He was talking, smiling. How you doing? Can you get your thing out of the car? Absolutely no problem. until the pink panty wimp saw a gun and he freaked out. Oh, this officer's just pathetic.
Everything's on video. We'll go to court on it. That's fine. Hey, I've been stand up. Hang on a minute. I've been stopped 3 times before, and they asked me if I had a weapon. I said, yes, sir, I do. And when we went to that damn school, they said, if they don't ask you, don't worry with it. All right, so you're going to let it pop out from behind your shirt. That's a violation of your permit right there. How's that? Because I saw it. That's how. It's not concealed anymore.
Violation of your permit because I saw it. See, they used to pull that crap here in Texas. They would call it printing, or they'd see part of the gun, and they'd want to get out and exert their big police power. And the legislators said, you know what? We're going to stop these cops from manipulating the law and harassing decent people. And they changed it to where now open carry's passed, but now they can't. Incidental exposure of a concealed carry gun is not an arrestable offense. And Florida did the same thing. So they go back and forth. They get it there. You can hear the guy talking. Let's look at the case here a little bit. So Florida statute says a person may openly carry for the purpose of self-defense. Open carry. Oh, you know what? I went to the wrong one here. Let me go to concealed carry. So all persons certified, basically it says it has to remain concealed if you carry concealed. And I read this law and I went, well, technically it was a violation. It wasn't anywhere near arrestable, and no DA in his right mind would charge this and try to put this in front of a jury. Because the officer told him to reach back in a van, which caused his shirt to go up because he was leaning. Had the officer not told him, had he not followed the officer's instructions, the gun wouldn't have been exposed. So the officer actually kind of caused the exposure. And like I said, no DA would, in his right mind, would charge this. And they didn't. They dismissed this. But it didn't stop him from arresting him, having to bail out, and having to hire an attorney. And this link is on legal.com under decisions and info doc 201-409-11843. You can play it back if you want to write it down. But anyway, so in this case, it goes over why the officer, what happened, what they're suing for, and why they dismissed all the charges and protected the cop. And basically, if you read through all this, and I'll pause it in case somebody wants to read it here. Let me go slow. We're going to get down to standard of review. They go through. Okay, so here's a discussion on why they're disposing of each one. Maybe they're getting into standing here. The first claim asserted that Mr. Smith against Deputy Cox in willful, wanton, malicious, and abusive conduct. Obviously, he didn't do that. But because in here they go into a lot of case law on how the officer has qualified immunity. So I'm just going to skip down. Equal protection claim was dismissed. Where's the other one that was dismissed? I'm just going to go down to the dismiss one. For these reasons, count 4 will be dismissed. For injury, because he said there was no injury. He didn't use excessive force when he was handcuffing. So there was no injury. Under the qualified immunity claim against the officer, they kind of went through what qualified immunity is discretion. It protects an officer when he's carrying out discretions. But the key part here, everybody's always like, well, he didn't know or he didn't. In order to show qualified immunity, it says facts taken in light most favorable to the party asserting the injury. So they're supposed to be looking at it for the plaintiff's point. And then there's no dispute in the case that Deputy Cox was at all time acting within his discretionary authority. So he met that. The burden, therefore, shifts to Mr. Smith. So if you read all the case law there, what it basically says is the deputy, all he has to prove is, was he acting with his authority, which I always say, as long as you're complying with policy within your authority, you're covered with qualified immunity. So once the officer passes that test, I was doing my duty, which usually is showing up. I mean, you're there. You're on duty. You're in uniform. you're taking law enforcement action. You're automatically covered for discretionary authority. Then the burden shifts to the party that was supposedly aggrieved or injured, which would be Mr. Smith, who was arrested, and he has to show why he isn't entitled to qualified immunity. And he failed to satisfy that, because that's a hard burden to meet. He would have to show that he wasn't acting in his course of his duty. Like, he was at his girlfriend's house, you showed up because you were sleeping with his girlfriend, he was off duty, and then suddenly he beat the hell out of you, and then he said he was going to arrest you, and then it would be a little bit easier to show that he wasn't acting in his own self-defense or in the scope of his employment or under the authority. So then in this court case was unlawful arrest. And was the arrest lawful? So the court determined in this, probable cause is always the same. Officer must have probable cause to believe that arrestee has committed, is committing, or is about to commit a crime. So he's got a gun on him. It was showed. This is going to be weighed in the officer's thing. So they're trying to claim it violated his Fourth Amendment, and I think the judge kind of does this one away too. And probable cause, the standard is met when the facts and circumstances of the officer's knowledge in which he or she has reasonable, trustworthy information, basically any reasonable officer, would he believe the right thing, would cause a prudent person, another officer, under the same circumstances, they left out with the same amount of training and experience, that the suspect has committed, is committed, or about to commit an offense. And because he had that, then qualified immunity protection goes on to the officer. So the court dismissed this charge. Let's see. Deputy Cox violating prohibits. Decided to arrest Mr. Smith. Only the bottom of the holster was visible. Whether or not he saw the whole gun is kind of an issue. Not the tip of the holster. It doesn't matter. They're going to weigh in the officer's favor. Therefore, after reviewing, the court concludes that the facts alleged not demonstrate lacked either probable cause or arguable probable cause. And in the probable cause standard, it doesn't have to be real probable cause. It only has to be arguable that it could be probable cause. Kind of like when we arrest somebody for a felony. We can arrest somebody for a felony, and even though a felony did not and was not committed and did not occur, we're still covered because we're making a felony arrest. Because with felonies, you only have to believe that a felony has occurred. It doesn't have to actually occur. And I know people are going to go, oh, bootleg jackhammer cops. Yeah, well, I'm just telling what the law is, okay? People want to get pissed off. So then they try to go for unlawful search, and this one was also dismissed by the court. Go through all the case law. And because you can search a van incident to arrest, and you can also search a van because it's highly mobile, they were saying he shouldn't have searched the van. Well, you know what? Cops can almost search a damn car for anything nowadays. So the court said, failed to allege violation of constitutional right. Deputy Cox is entitled to qualified immunity. So they ruled in the cops' favor again. Shocker. Clearly established law. Deputy Cox actions were constitutional. So all this suit and everything, the court pretty much dismissed it all. Ruled in the favor of the officer. Shocker. And then if you go through all the footnotes here on the case and some of the things that they judge, if you notice the last one, in 2011, Florida amended to provide it is not a violation of the statute for a person licensed to carry, who is licensed to carry a firearm in a concealed manner, to briefly and openly display a firearm in an ordinary sight of another person, unless the firearm is intentionally displayed in an angry and threatening manner. Therefore, if this act would have been committed after this law was changed, it would not be a crime. So if this happened again today, it would not be a crime. It's unfortunate that this citizen who went through the steps and got the permit from the government had another government thug attack him, throw him on the ground, arrest him, cost him money, and just totally be a freaking punk in my book. So as far as I'm concerned, what's this guy's name? I want to make sure I got his name right. Is it Andy Cox? Deputy Andy Cox. You're a big P for punk or something else. All right, we'll end it there. This case is kind of BS, but that's the way the law is, people. I mean, it's hard to fight, and you need to understand it. And sometimes people confuse when I explain the law and I tell them something, they want to get mad at me because they think I'm unconstitutional, and I believe it and I support it. And that if I wrote the law, that's the way I would write it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying cops act within the law that's given them. They know how to cover their butt. They know how to stay within the law, within policy. They know they're going to get ruled in their favor unless they really step out of bounds. So in one way, you could look at this. Cops aren't held accountable enough. That's why there's so much abuse. All right, we'll end that there.